Morning, everyone. We're going to get started.
Okay. I'll count backwards from 5. I'll bring your public in. 1 second. Please count
Thank you.
backwards from 5. And now.
Somebody's talking on the link. That's the AT&T moderator. I think they're joining. Yes.
All right. Good morning, and ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this board meeting to order. I believe we have a quorum present. Ms. Cicchetti, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Cohen?
Present.
Vice Chair Schaefer? Mr. Gaines?
Present.
Mr. Vasquez?
Present.
Mr. Eppolite, Deputy Controller Eppolite.
Present.
Great. Thank you very much. We have a quorum. Let's get to business. I don't have any prepared opening remarks. Do any of my colleagues have anything they'd like to share this morning? Nope. Seeing none. All right. Let's go ahead and get in. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the first agenda item.
Okay. The first item for today is L, Board Member Requested Matters, L2A, Board Member Initiatives, Board Member Strategic Plan Updates, Quarterly Reports on Priorities, Actions, and Progress related to the goals of the Board Member Strategic Plan, presented by Chair Cohen and Mr. Vasquez.
Good morning. All right. Thank you. Mr. Vasquez, I will turn it over to you if you have some opening remarks.
Sure. Good morning. Thank you. At the July 26th meeting, we gave a quarterly report on the board members' strategic plan. You should all have a copy of this in your folder, and then I understand you also had one put on your desk as well this morning. As you will note, we took action on two main items at that time. First, we authorized more time for the executive director to assist us on goal number 1. And second, we received a report from the Branding and Outreach Committee members Gaines and Schaefer that 2 of their action items were completed and 2 were in full progress. Under action item 1, goal 1A, we authorized 60 more days for the executive director to conduct a survey of the agency to determine whether we have the resources and the infrastructure to fulfill its workload, and to report back to the board on the gaps. And with the plan of action to address the gaps in the next 3 years. Under Goal 1C, we authorized more time for the executive director to conduct a similar survey in coordination with each member to determine whether our offices have the resources and the infrastructure to fulfill our constitutional responsibilities and workload, and to develop an action plan to address any gaps. She estimated that work would begin in August or September. With that, let me turn it back to Chair Cohen, and then we could, I believe we're bringing Ms. Stowers up, right?
That's right. Thank you, Ms. Stowers. Why don't you come join us?
I had some comments.
Okay. Mr. Schaefer has a few comments.
Yes.
This was related to the L item, Mr. Schaefer?
Well, I just have my comments in general. Like at the start of the meeting, I had a couple. Would that be inappropriate now?
Yeah, we skipped that. We moved on to that part. We're dealing with the board member initiatives now on the agenda, dealing with the strategic plan.
My comment on Bob Dutton then would be at the end of the meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Ms. Stowers, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Is there any comments that you'd like to add to the L item?
Not at this time, ma'am.
Great. All right, no problem. Looks like we are moving through.
Okay, then I will go on to, under action number 2, Goal 3 and Goal 4, we received a detailed report and recommendations by Member Gaines and Member Schaefer and their staff on Goal 3, developing an educational and outreach plan, and Goal 4, branding to ensure that all constituencies are acknowledgeable about the agency and the board our property tax responsibilities. They reported that two actions were completed and 2 were in progress. The 2 actions completed were Board Member Outreach Toolkit, developed by the BOE Communications Chief Peter Kim for each board member's office, consisting of a flyer, a public service announcement, both audio and video, social media graphics, suggested talking points, an e-blast message and image for the use as web button on external partners' websites, and web links for additional information regarding public hearings and events. The BOE website updates with the ability to feature hearings with the dedicated banner on our homepage, and as stakeholders can use as electronic form rather than paper to submit their concerns up to date of the hearing. This was used for the TRA hearing with great success with Mr. Kim in continuing further updates and improvements. The second action in progress are developing a board members' education and outreach plan that identifies all constituencies in collaboration with the executive director. Work is in progress with the executive director and Mr. Kim to create a vision for how members can effectively fulfill their ambassadorship to educate those in their districts, address their concerns, and report back to the board for a statewide issues and needs. They will include basic concepts learned from the USC study on branding, ensuring that taxpayers, elected officials, business associations, nonprofits, veterans, and other constituencies are knowledgeable about the agency and the board, and our exclusive responsibility for property tax administration. Each board member will identify items relevant to their respective district to be included in the plan. The executive director will survey each member to confirm specific education and outreach needs, methods, issues, and constituencies. Each will collect all input but will not share it with other members. It will be compiled in a report for submittal to members Gaines and Mr. Schaefer, who are the Branding and Communications Committee, to report to the full board and help facilitate this work on a strategic plan. Per the July 26th meeting minutes, board's final action was a motion. A motion that was moved by Member Gaines and seconded by Member Vasquez, unanimously carried. The board directed the Branding and Communications Committee to explore the ambassadorship program and outreach for each district and bring those ideas back to the board for consideration with the progress report at its August meeting. Although the Branding and Communications Committee was unable to bring this back due to the work associated with TRA hearings and property tax abatement work group hearings, I believe Mr. Gaines and Mr. Schaefer and staff are prepared to report on this now today. Is that correct?
No, I'm not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Then with that, I'll move it back to my chair, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Board Member Vasquez, thanks for your continued leadership in this area. When we developed the strategic plan, we identified key steps we needed to take to rebuild the agency and to restore it to its stellar reputation. And I just wanted to go on record and let you know that I'm working closely with the Executive Director on Goal 1 and Goal 2. We will have a formal report for the report out for the November board meeting. All right. Colleagues, if there are no other report outs or any information to be shared, let's go ahead. Ms. Cicchetti, let's take public comment.
AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this matter.
For public comment by phone, please press 10 on your phone's keypad at this time. An operator will ask you for your name and place you in queue. Listen for your name to be called. One moment. At this time, we have no callers queuing up.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Ms. Cicchetti, let's call the next item.
The next item on this agenda today is L, Board Member Requested Matters, L3A, Board Workgroup Report, Property Tax Abatement. Report out on the Property Tax Abatement Workgroup presented by Chair Cohn and Mr. Vasquez.
All right. All right, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen and members, over the last several months, the Property Tax Abatement Work Group examined the feasibility of using property tax abatements as a tool to incentivize the development of housing in California, especially for those that fall in the missing middle category. And just by a loose definition, the missing middle are usually people that have careers such as being a school teacher or a first responder, a nurse, maybe a healthcare provider. Once again, I just would like to acknowledge and extend my appreciation to the many individuals, to the organizations, and the housing advocates, developers, and state agencies, both those that are local and statewide, who devoted their time and energy to this process. I am grateful for your insights and for the testimony. It's very valued by this board, and I think it's an important asset to, as we consider how we can help address the affordable housing crisis. So looking forward, my office, in collaboration with Member Vasquez's office, as well as with the Bay Area Council, will issue a full report to the board, including the proceedings that took place, the public policy perspectives, and recommendations for pathways forward. I will continue to keep the board updated on our progress. And that's all I have for now. Thank you. Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for leading this group's hearings over the past 3 months. We were really privileged to have so many experts testify and provide with recommendations. I'm looking forward to studying this report. I have a specific question, though, for Mr. Young, if he would please come up. And Mr. Nanjo, possibly the two of you could hopefully handle this one. To address the next month on whether Section 402.1 applies to the properties we've heard about that are legally restricted and rent controlled by city ordinances. A few BOE LTAs and legal opinions seem to say that Section 402.1 controls the valuation of low-income housing properties, which I think means that assessors should use actual rent rather than market rent. Since there are hundreds of residential hotels built before 1978 that are limited or ordinance to low-income housing, and since we need to ensure accurate and uniform assessments statewide, would you provide us with your written opinion at our next meeting, if possible, on this issue?
You want to work on a?
We can work on it.
Yeah, we can, yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. That's
Yes.
not a problem.
Appreciate it. In reviewing my notes, I came away with 3 suggestions we explore in depth with the BOE staff, assessors, and our state and local agency partners. These are proposed by several speakers last month, especially Dr. Ward from the RAND Corporation. I'll read them into the record because I'm including them in a motion at the end of this. First, we should determine how much a property tax abatement or exemption really matters for certain housing types in specific areas. What amount will make or break certain projects, and how long is it needed? It's important that we can advise the legislature on where abatements or exemptions have the greatest impact to meet the greatest needs. Second, we should create a spreadsheet or map on what makes sense. List the types of abatement and exemptions ideas we talked about, including what we have now, and identify the agencies involved in administering them, the cost effectiveness of administration, and the property tax revenue impacts. As Member Gaines said at last month's board meeting, abatements or exemptions that are administered as tax rebates may be simple and effective as an incentive or certain housing projects, so let's map it out. Third, keep BOE at the table to do what it does best. As Dr. Ward said, BOE needs to ensure that all assessments of affordable housing are uniform and accurate, and that all abatements and exemptions are simple and streamlined. We need review the way affordable housing is assessed. For example, should it be valued as restricted under Section 402.1? And we need to work with assessors on streamlining exemptions and abatement procedures. Members, I would like to see our work group continue and address these issues in partnership with the assessors and other state and local agencies as we move forward. Therefore, I make a motion to continue this work group so that we can address the 3 items I just read into the record, in addition to items other members may have this evening or this morning.
I will second that motion.
Appreciate it.
All right, let's see if there's any discussion before we take a motion. We will also need to take public comment, but,
Yes.
Mr. Gaines, any thoughts that you have down there? Mr. Gaines, nope. Mr. Applewhite, nope. Okay, let's take public comment.
Yes.
If I can interrupt.
Yes.
Member Vasquez, if I could ask you to send me an email with the question that you want Dave and I to look at. That way, we can make sure we understand what your ask is, so
Will do.
appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Cohen.
Thank you, no problem. Mr. Applewhite?
Could you repeat your motion again?
Yes. It's, I make a motion to continue, well, I read the other statements, right, that are continue to it, but the motion is to continue the work group so that we can address the 3 items that I just read into the record. In addition, items that you all may want to add to this. I'm open to that as well. And
No.
hearing none, I guess you open
think-
it up to the public, right?
Yeah,
We've
I'm
opened
gonna
it
go
up to the public. There is no public comment, so let's,
I have nobody in the audience who has a public comment. I do have a written comment for this item, so I'll go to the AT&T moderator first.
thank you.
AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this matter.
Members of the public to comment by phone, please press 10. Madam Chair, we have no respondents in queue.
Thank you. I'm going to read a public comment that we received on our webpage. It was from someone who's anonymous. They wanted to make a comment on item L3A, property tax abatement, work report out on property tax abatement work group. Comment. I have been listening to your meetings over the last few months regarding tax abatements for affordable housing. I understand that the Board of Equalization can sometimes request the tax collector to abate penalties. What role would the Board of Equalization play in abatement of tax bills? It seems those duties would fall on the tax collector. Does the Board of Equalization have any authority to abate tax bills? Maybe your legal advisor can provide an answer. That ends the comment.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that comment. Let's, would you like a vote for your motion?
Please.
Yes.
All right.
Unless there's any other,
I don't think there's any more
Suggestions or
discussion. No,
additions?
no more suggestions, no more additions. Let's go ahead and call the vote. Ms. Cicchetti, just call the roll, please.
Call the roll. Ms. Chair Cohen?
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer?
Aye.
Member Gaines?
Aye.
Member Vasquez?
aye.
Deputy Controller Epperlight?
Aye.
Thank you, members.
Yes, you're welcome. We look forward to that. All right, next item. Mr. Cicchetti. Oh, yes, Mr. Eppolite?
Just had a question for the work group chairs.
Okay.
Before the adoption of a report, I had reviewed the work group charter that the board adopted back in November of last year. And in reviewing, I believe it's sections 6 and 10 of the charter, the charter contemplates the production of minutes, and before a report can be issued, Section 10 of the charter provides that the minutes serve as the material for, or the basis for the report. So before a report can be issued, there have to be minutes produced by the work group that are created by the chair and co-chair. So when we had the work group for the 3 months, the work group was transcribed. So we should have minutes brought forth.
Okay.
And Section 10 provides that the board work group chair will submit the draft minutes to the chair of the board and the executive director for approval then submitted to the full board for final approval at a regularly scheduled board meeting. Note, to avoid Bagley-Keene issues, the draft minutes or any other board work group material must be submitted using the board proceeding process. The executive director shall submit the final version of the minutes to the board proceedings division chief for posting to the BOE website and to serve as the material for the board work group report to the full board. So the procedure established in the charter provides for minutes first and then as the basis for the report. So we need to produce minutes first and as the basis for a report.
All right, thank you for bringing our attention to the procedure. I think that's what you're doing.
Yes.
Okay, calling our attention to the procedures, yes. Not a problem, we'll take care of that. And get you the minutes first and go through the established charter procedure. Ms. Cicchetti, how are you?
Very good.
Good, all right. Do we have anything else on the agenda?
No, because the next item that we'll be doing is the annual board meeting with the county assessors, which has a time certain start.
Yes, what time does that start?
10
All
o'clock
right.
is the time certain.
So what we can do is we will go
Recess.
into a recess, and we will reconvene at 10 o'clock.
That's correct.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. And the-
See so many people here. I'm even more happy to feel the energy and the excitement. To be able to bring all of us together, it's a privilege. Thank you for joining us. We are ready to call the annual board meeting with county assessors to order. Ms. Cicchetti, please call our first agenda item.
First agenda item is greeting, I apologize, bring the mic over.
Okay.
I think everyone would be happy about that. The first item on today's agenda for the annual board meeting with the county assessors is 1, greeting and introductory remarks by each board member and the executive director.
Well, thank you very much. May I offer some remarks, and then I'll look to, okay, thank you. All right, well, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. You are alive out there, and we are in person. It's my distinct pleasure and honor to welcome everyone again to our county assessors' annual meeting at the Board of Equalization, and welcome the 58 county assessors joining us today. Let me begin by thanking Assessor Leslie Morgan, who has just been a friend and a sister and has demonstrated tremendous leadership over the past year. Thank you very much for joining us and being a part of today. You have been a true partner in our property tax administration business. And as a board, I speak for my colleagues, we are very grateful for your many contributions to the work over this past year and your willingness to engage in difficult questions and engage with each of us as we carry out our constitutionally mandated responsibility as board members. So thank you, Leslie. I'm also pleased to recognize and welcome new president-elect of the California Assessors Association, the Honorable Christine Lee from Kings County. Welcome. It's good to see you. I think I speak for the board when I say we are looking forward again to working with you, a very productive year to come ahead. 2022 has been a very interesting, but I think a very productive year. We have continued to successfully transition out of the pandemic. We are redefining what it looks like while simultaneously carrying out respective roles and responsibilities in administering California's complex $85 billion property tax system. And our state and local governments are working hard to restore our local economies and to address the unprecedented housing and homeless challenges. In the backdrop of these realities, we continue to forge ahead, knowing that our local governments and school districts and special districts, they're counting on us, each and every one of us. And so with that said, each of you should take a great pride in the important work that your teams are delivering every day on behalf of the residents and property owners throughout the entire state of California. I'd like to now take a few minutes to highlight some of the key achievements from 2022. Don't worry, I will definitely be brief. But first, I just want to acknowledge Prop 19. Since the passage of Prop 19, we've continued to work alongside in each and every one of you, as well as with our stakeholders, in implementing this historic property tax change. And it was in our Board of Equalization meeting yesterday that I think it was Lisa Thompson had just noted that people are still asking questions about Prop 13. And we know Prop 13 has been around since, well, before I was born. So, a long time ago. A long time ago. So if people are still asking questions about Prop 13, you can imagine the effects about what Prop 19 will be. So we are definitely the experts of Prop 19 in this room. And together we have worked on clarifying the legislation, implementing new property tax rules, creating new forums, providing guidance for stakeholders, and have collectively worked to inform the public of this huge change. In October of 2022, the Board of Equalization team also provided training to your offices, and we were engaged in the steps to provide broader, more expansive outreach and training to our stakeholders. Now, speaking of training, we've also leveraged our collective resources to partner on continuing education requirements. By working together, we've been able to combine resources and leverage talent to reach many more than we have ever done in the past. This has helped us to increase the number of courses taught this year to 33, which is 10 more than what was accomplished last year, and 3 additional course topics for a total of 8 subjects offered. And the training schedule includes both in-person classes as well as virtual classes. And with that, I want to recognize Patricia Lumsden. You guys may know her as Patty. Patty is also going to be retiring. We recognized her yesterday. If Miss Lumsden is in here, Miss Lumsden, just kind of wave. Yeah, there she is. Yes, so she's been incredibly instrumental in making sure that we meet and exceed expectations when it comes to delivering classes. And this board remains committed to working with our executive director, Ms. Stowers, who stepped in earlier this year, to develop a comprehensive training initiatives delivered by the BOE to ensure that we are always putting forward the highest quality of a training module and continually bettering our best across the entire state. The assessment practices survey, as you are all aware, the primary objective of the assessment practice survey program is to ensure that the assessor's compliance with state law governing the administration of the local property tax system. And our objectives are to serve threefold. First, protecting the state's interest in the property tax dollar. Second, promoting fair treatment of taxpayers. And third, maintaining the overall integrity and public confidence in our property tax system. So this year, as of October 2022, we've completed 10 surveys or samplings for the 2022 calendar year. The counties with completed surveys are Alameda, Santa Barbara, Sierra, Stanislaus, Amador, Inyo, Sacramento, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Napa. For each of these surveys, the assessors and their staff have given their complete cooperation, and thank you for that. Additionally, the board appreciates CAA's continued support and participation through our assessment practice surveys ad hoc committee in improving the survey process. Finally, I want to just note a few more things. The LTAs, the infamous letters to the assessors. In calendar year 2022, we issued 48 letters to the assessors providing an ongoing advisory service to you and as well as to other interested party. And you, of all people, know that these letters present the board staff's interpretation of rules, of the laws, of court decisions on property tax assessment. They also include summaries of court filings, legal opinions, highlights of enacted legislation, property tax rule, and technical bulletins for assessment problems. I want to just also acknowledge Henry Nanjo and his department, his legal department. Richard Moon also on this team have just been stellar. We have expanded our legal team, and so we hope to be able to better serve you all now that we are increasing our staffing levels. But I want to go over the issued LTA topics that we have issued. Welfare exemption, neutral resources and natural resources and open space lands. Valuation of certified aircraft California standard flight time. The Assessment Appeals Board remote hearings during COVID-19. The implementation of Prop 19 base value transfers, implementation of Prop 19, the intergenerational transfer exclusion, income levels for tribal housing exemption, and income levels for leased property used exclusively for low-income rental housing. So we have achieved a lot this year over the past 4 years. So in closing, I'd like to just acknowledge that when I took the oath of office, I identified 3 basic priorities that still remain my priority as a board member today. They are to restore the stellar reputation of the Board of Equalization as it has possessed in previous years, rebuild the agency's administrative and programmatic infrastructure so that we are all able to continually protect the rights of California taxpayers while simultaneously ensuring that the agency and the 58 county assessors have the needed resources to fulfill our collective constitutional responsibilities. And then final, to modernize the California the California property tax system to ensure that this complex system is administered in a fair, effective, and efficient manner. Although these priorities are my own personal priorities, I believe that they do reflect what is the best of our board's work to achieve these goals on a daily basis. And in closing, I'll say that we remain committed to ensuring that you all have everything that you need to serve the property in the property tax space and to continue to serve your constituents. Thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time, and thank you for listening to my remarks. With that, you guys are very kind. With that, I'd like to acknowledge first my vice chair, Mr. Schaefer, and then I will acknowledge Mr. Vasquez second. Mr. Schaefer, do you have any remarks that you'd like to share?
Yes, thank you. Well, I'd like to specifically welcome the people from my district that are doing the Lord's work in the assessment field. Ernie Dronenberg from San Diego, Bob Menville from Imperial County, Claude Parrish in Orange County, Peter Aldana in Riverside County, and Chris, the new guy in San Bernardino County. I am particularly blessed to have as a mentor down in San Diego for the last 4 years, would you believe, Ernest Dronenberg. And, hardly any of the members can claim that. We have been meeting virtually for most of this past year, and I'm so glad to be back in the saddle up here, and for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is frequent flyer miles. I get the award for having come the furthest for the luncheon today, but it's important that we do get together and break bread once in a while. We have had a lot of angry taxpayers over the year, mostly Prop 19 questions, which we have solved, I think, very appropriately. And Malia, would I comment on our late assessor now? Is that appropriate? Yes, and as you know, we lost Senator Bob Dutton, who was assessor for San Bernardino County. It was unexpected. And a lot of things I admired about Bob Dutton. He started life as a city councilman in Rancho Cucamonga. He was such a devout spokesman for the city. He was known as R.C. Bob. And then he ran for the state assembly for a term or two and then became a state senator and really stirred up things in Sacramento. He ran for the United States House of Representatives, didn't make it, but that shows the vision that he had. And one of the greatest things about him that I so envy, because I've lost my dad, is his father was still alive when he passed, and that's a very cherished thing. Whenever I saw him, he was dressed as an outdoors person. I'm an indoors person. I'm in a law library. I'm reading newspapers online. He was dressed to go hunting, to go fishing. In fact, I don't know if he did go hunting or fishing. The obituary just talks about how he went bird hunting, and so that was his title. But he was there. He had a vision much bigger than a lot of the people, and we can appreciate that. And when I saw him, he always was enthusiastic. He was dressed casual, ready to go out and do something with nature. So we miss him. He left us too early, and I'm so glad to have met Chris this morning, who's carrying on his work. And I thank you for those of you who made it, and those of you who don't. I hope you'll contact me if I can ever help you. You know Gary Gardner, who is my chief of staff, and Brooker Langford, these two guys, plus my great staff here in town. Sue Blake, who's been with us for the state for 30 years, as my chief attorney. We are here to do the best job we can, and we look good because you make us look good. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, speaking of other folks that help us make look good, I want to recognize Lisa Thompson, who is, yes, Lisa, she just rolled her eyes. I saw it from up here. I saw it from up here, Lisa. And then also David Young. David Young provides a lot of insight and a lot of advice and leads an important team. Folks, also you might recall Rosemary Kinney, longtime Board of Equalization member. Yesterday, we closed out the meeting in her memory. As you know, she lost her battle to cancer, and all of us have called on her for help or advice at one point or another. With that, I'd like to look to my right to see if my colleague, Mr. Vasquez, has anything to add.
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me. Just like to echo the comments that were made already, but also add my welcoming to all the assessors that made the trip up here. This is, I understand, the 56th annual Board Assessors meeting, and I guess it was 56 years ago that legislation was passed in 1966, requiring us to meet, although I understand assessors were meeting prior to the legislation. And I'm looking forward to getting some of your feedback and having a little bit more interaction with you. I'm the fortunate one of my colleagues that I only really have 3 assessors that I deal with, and 2 of them are here today. And what Ms. Schaefer mentioned, I lost one of mine, Bob Dutton, because I split San Bernardino with Mr. Schaefer. But I see Dan Goodwin, who's actually retiring. He's been real helpful when I had Ventura, but after November, it looks like it's all going to be just me and Jeff for LA County. LA County is so huge, we get 10 million people just in one county. Unlike, some of the ag counties up here, and I feel for my colleagues that have 30 or plus assessors to meet with. And I don't know how you do that, especially physically, I mean, I think the furthest one might be Chair Cohen, right? Don't you go all the way? Now you're going to go all the way to Ventura. I think you go to Ventura all the way up to the border on the West Coast. And then, of course, Member Gaines, I think you're going all the way to San Bernardino. You're taking my little piece of San Bernardino. But at any event, just want to acknowledge the hard work and thank our outgoing President, Leslie Morgan, for your participation and your assistance, especially during this whole COVID period. I know it was difficult, but one of the silver linings, I think, because of it, we had some of these hearings. I remember when I was the chair, we did one of the first hearings, we had 1,000 people on the line. And when we have meetings up here, we're lucky to get 10 folks to show up here. So I think kind of creating this hybrid moving forward makes a lot of sense. Because for us, up here, it's all about getting feedback, not only from the assessors, but also from taxpayers, that are on the ground trying to navigate this system that we have. And then wanted to welcome, and I just had an opportunity to meet the incoming Christine Lee from King County, and looking forward to your participation and working with you this year to come. And with that, just wanted to turn it back over, but wanted to just share my ideas and thoughts, and I think our chair hit it on the nail. We just kind of broke into these new areas, especially on the tax abatement and possible tax credits that the BOE now has some authority on, to see what we can do to be part of the solution with the issue of affordable housing, which you all experience in many of your counties, the 58 different counties throughout the state. So looking forward to a new year and some new leadership. And I know we're going to miss, in San Diego, Mr. Johnberry, you're going to leave such a huge vacuum. But, and speaking to you, it sounds like you're going to have a little bit of free time, so definitely going to tap into that resources and your experiences, and so you can continue to come out and share some of your ideas and thoughts with us as we move forward. Thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Gaines, Senator Gaines.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all for coming. Very exciting to see faces after coming out of the pandemic and how rough that was. I was impressed, though, with how our county assessors and the BOE did, I think, a pretty good job in kind of wrestling through that very difficult time. And we've kind of learned a few efficiencies as a result of the pandemic. I did want to recognize Bob Dutton, because I think we've all represented part of San Bernardino County, maybe, but I did have the opportunity to serve with him in the Senate, and he was just a class act. He was really a gentleman, and you don't find that many people like that in politics, and so it was an honor to serve with him, and he was doing such a good job as assessor. He was always coming up with ideas on how to improve service, how to operate more efficiently. I remember when they had the earthquake down in that area, he was talking about, well, you know, maybe we don't have to do assessments on lower values. Maybe we can just give these folks a break. It costs more to try to go after the revenue than not. And then, of course, I'd like to thank Leslie Morgan for your service as the president, and really excited about Christine Lee and your opportunity to serve as the leader for the assessors. We've got some challenges with Prop 19. It'll be interesting to see what happens politically with that, because I know that Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association seems to be focused on that, which I think is good, on this aspect of passing property on to children and grandchildren. It really, I think it hits a nerve with a lot of our constituents, and I understand that. And there's been some struggles. Even, you know, the ag community got an exemption, and I think there's still problems in that arena with the passage of a family ranch or a family farm and the ability to keep that within the family. We've got lots of multi-generational farmers, or we have some, I should say, and we want to try to keep those intact. We've got some interesting clouds on the horizon. It'll be interesting to see, you know, in some ways we're in a recession if you look at contraction of the economy, but in other ways we seem to be at full employment, so I don't know where this is going to all end up. But we may have declining values that we may have to address. I don't know. And of course, potentially a recession. And then I've got 7 assessors retiring in my district. And so I just want to, we'll have more opportunity to do this as we move forward. But thank each of you for your service. And, you know, we've, in many cases, serviced for over 30 years. Dedicated public servants. And I am looking forward to our breakout session. And Ernie, our breakout session, Ernie, is going to be in your room. Okay, so it's going to be in the Dronenberg room, which is right here, when we have our breakout session. So looking forward to that. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Deputy Controller Eppolite, if he's got any remarks.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Controller Yee, it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to this annual meeting. Some 20 years ago, then Assistant Chief Counsel Larry Augusta sent a younger property tax attorney to his first assessors conference on the Central Coast, to a conference in Solvang, where a wonderful time was had by all. I look forward to a robust conversation and dialogue for the issues before us on today's agenda. And I thank all of you for coming so that we can work together to advance property tax administration on behalf of all Californians. And I congratulate all the retiring assessors. So thank you for coming.
All right, thank you, Deputy Controller Eppolite. And with that, I'd like to pivot to Ms. Stowers, the Executive Director of the Board of
Good morning. Yes. Good morning, members. Yvette Stowers, Executive Director for the Board of Equalization. I'd like to recognize the Honorable Leslie Morgan, President, California Assessors Association, and Shasta County Assessor Recorder, and the Honorable Christine Lee, President-elect for the association, Kings County Assessor Clerk Recorder. In addition, I would like to thank all 58 county assessors for joining us today at our annual Board and Assessors meeting. I would like to take a moment to thank Assessor Morgan for her almost year of service as the president. It's been a great pleasure partnering with you. I look forward to working with Assessor Lee. The annual meeting with the county assessors provides an opportunity to meet and discuss matters relating to the administration of property assessment and taxation laws and promote uniformity in tax procedural matters throughout the state of California. This meeting provides a forum for formal and informal dialogue between the county assessors, board members, to discuss concerns and common goals. I look forward to today's dialogue as it will assist us to identify and agree on shared priorities for 2023 as we move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Ketty, did I get ahead of myself? Did we call the item? We did?
We called the first item. We
Okay.
did, yes.
All right, fantastic. All right. Thank you,
Yeah.
Ms. Stowers. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our greeting and introductory remarks. Mr. Ketty will call our next item.
Next item on today's agenda is overview of the Board of Equalization and the California Assessors Association accomplishments and priorities. The speakers today will be the Honorable Malia Cohen, Chair of the State Board of Equalization, Honorable Leslie Morgan, President CAA, Shasta County Assessor Recorder, and Honorable Christine Lee, President-elect, CAA and Kings County Assessor Clerk Recorder.
All right, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've already gone over the BOE and the CAA's BOE's accomplishments. I'm going to turn it over to you, ladies. Ms. Leslie Morgan, for your overview, and then we will hear from Ms. Christine Lee.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Cohen and members of the board. Leslie Morgan, Shasta County Assessor Recorder, and this year's California Assessors Association President. I'd like to first acknowledge the relationships that assessors have as well as the staff over the years with your BOE staff. It's such an instrumental piece of it, and with that, I want to acknowledge the retirement of Patty Lumsden. She's been such a good partner and a friend. We really develop relationships with the staff over the years, and we really lean on them. Leading to that is also the acknowledgement of the passing of Rosemary Kinney. I came into the office in 1995. In 1996, I got to hear one of her really wonderful legislative reviews, and who would think you would ever say that, right? Her personality was so big, her understanding of the laws was so deep, and the way she presented them really made it so that you could understand it, even as an appraiser coming in with 1 year of experience. Her passing hits us as well as you guys on an emotional level for her as a person, for Dean, and I just want to acknowledge that on behalf of the Assessors Association. This year has been really eventful for the CAA, as you know. We started with a string of questions and lingering concerns with Prop 19. It went into effect in February of 2021 without a single answer, so that was really nice. We had to get additional legislation, straighten out some of the issues with the farms, so many other little pieces. And in the meantime, you know, we have these applications building up for us. We're now at a point where we got through to the 2022 roll, where we were able to finally get some of those questions answered and at least get to an administrative platform of how we administer it, how we make those determinations of qualifications, and to be able to get those enrolled. It was really important, the role that the board had in terms of the emergency rules, the rules that were passed earlier this year, and we're moving towards the adoption by the board, I believe, in next month's or the following month's meetings. So that's really important so that we all are working on a level playing field and making sure we're administering these correctly. With the close of the 2022 rolls and the Prop 19, we also recognize that there's so many requirements for the filing of the documents, but either by the taxpayers, the documents we transition between counties, and the reporting to the state, CDTFA, as well as a partner. And we were able to build a relationship with the Department of Finance in their new grant funding opportunity for us to tap into a $10 million grant for this year. Been working on that really diligently with them so that we can focus on technology-driven aspects and make sure that we're being efficient as an offices and do it in a way where many of us may not have ever been able to get those resources through our counties, especially speaking on behalf of the smaller counties, which you have many of. And it's really an important place. We're at the beginning stages of that. I feel like we're moving along very well. We've had many, many meetings over time. We were able to have some meetings with Regina, involved initially with some of the early discussions. And that's moving along quite well for us so that we can continue to build efforts to be more informative, and have a really good platform for how we get those processed to make it more efficient, more timely. We've, in order to do that, we're building a JPA. So we will have a governing oversight for that $10 million and hopefully the additional $10 million in 2 more years. So we can continue to build those projects like our Prop 19 portal and the creation of an exemption e-filing process. Those are our 2 main priorities this year. So we're looking forward to getting that vendor research capability going and get that established well so that not only it can serve for these 2 areas, but for other areas as we continue to develop and grow over the next few years. It's been such a pleasure to sit in on the BOE Advisory Council. They put a great deal of effort into the information, getting information to the citizens of the state and to make them aware of laws. And it's so beneficial to us as counties, having the ability to link to the websites that your staff have created, having us all giving uniform messages to them. And yet we can't reach everybody, right? We still have people asking questions about Prop 13. So no matter how hard we try to interact with the citizens, there's just a reality. There's some things you don't need to know until you need to know them. And that's where we come in. I've also been able to sit in on the property tax abatement work group. Thank you for that, because as you stated, what we do as assessor is just critical. The property tax collection process is so instrumental to the rest of government, providing schools, law enforcement, fire, all of those things are so instrumental. It's so important we do what we do, and yet we need to do it fairly. We need to make sure nobody's being overassessed. We need to make sure it's being done accurately and with the fairness of everybody involved. So, you know, we very much think of ourselves as advocates, and as you do, so it's nice to have that partnering. It seems to me, I've noticed, because I've been trying to sit in, listen in on these meetings, that you seem to get a couple different perspectives when you either get somebody coming to give you a very specific scenario of what they're dealing with, or you get this kind of dump of a generalized statement. And it's important that as the assessor representative, I can help you understand the nuances that come with each of those, you know. We can't always, depending on the time of year, depending on what's going on, can't expect to process a Prop 19 claim in 3 months. You know, we don't always have the most consistent application of a specific rule you might be reading, because the nuances of each individual record is different. So there's so many individualized aspects to what we're dealing with as an assessors in the generalization of property tax laws. So this relationship, having somebody here, having us to reach out if you have questions, having you to reach out if we want to provide clarity, it's such an important role for all of us. Let's see, I have notes here, make sure I stay on task. as I stated, we all consider ourselves advocates. We're always looking for new way to implement the laws that change for us all the time, like Prop 19. Luckily, not all of them are as big as Prop 19, so we have those variances, but Prop 19 is a big one for us, as you and as we'll be talking about later. With every question we get, we always feel the need to read the code again, because you just never know. Reading it again, the way it applies to a specific scenario, reaching out to each other as assessors, and reaching out to BOE staff. Again, it will always be part of what I stress in the relationship of what we do on behalf of the taxpayers. It really takes a cooperative effort by all of us. It's been a pleasure to be the CAA president and to support the BOE in that role throughout this year. And you guys are in such good hands with Christy Lee. So with that, I thank you for the year. It's been a pleasure, and I'm done. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Ms. Lee.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here today as we look forward to our continued relationship and mutual commitment to producing fair and equitable assessments and providing accurate information while serving the people of California. I also want to acknowledge Leslie and her hard work and leadership that she took on and did a fantastic job as president of our organization. Although I feel your board, the staff, and the Association of Assessors has worked diligently and have overcome huge hurdles over the last couple of years. Such things as the clarification and implementation of Prop 19 and how to operate in this post-COVID era and embrace uncertainty. But with that, there is always more to do, and there will undoubtedly be future hurdles to overcome in 2023. I expect that the assessors will be working towards developing and implementing the technological advancements that Assessor Morgan spoke about, having taxpayer reporting capabilities and databases that allow assessors throughout the state to share information regarding property transfers in relation to Prop 19. Regulations and exemptions will be a great benefit for all concerned. It will certainly create more accuracy and efficiencies in these areas. We will also look forward to working together with the Board of Equalization to find untapped opportunities to train and develop staff. Perhaps working with community colleges to create a pathway to becoming an appraiser or utilizing the various knowledgeable and very capable individuals within our offices that may be willing to hold courses. One thing that has been abundantly clear to me during the last several years in my role as assessor is the importance of working together and capitalizing on the strengths and ideas that come from individuals and in groups. I may know a thing or two about this or that, but it is the combined strength and knowledge of others that makes things happen. I believe this is true in our various organizations, committees, and various relationships. Therefore, I'm enthusiastic about the relationship the Assessors Association has with the Board of Equalization, and as much as I will miss the retiring assessors, their wisdom, experience, sense of humor, and helpful advice, I am also looking forward to the involvement and interactions with the new assessors this upcoming year as we will strive to serve the citizens of California in the absolute best manner possible as they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your perspective and your words of wisdom and kind thoughts to those that are going to be retiring. Ms. Giacchetti, do we have any public comment on this item?
Yeah, let's check with the AT&T operator. AT&T operator, can you let us know if there's anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this matter?
Certainly, again, it's 10 to ask a question or to make a comment. I apologize, 10. And currently nobody in queue.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Giacchetti, call the next item.
The next item is the group photo of the board members and the assessors. We will go into recess.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will go into recess and reconvene after the photograph has been taken. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Please come on. Let's take our seats. We've got a exciting roundtable discussion ahead of us. Mr. Kenny, do we need to call the item?
Yes, please. The next item on the agenda is item number 4, roundtable discussions. The board and the county assessors will engage in a dialogue about solutions to the lingering issues in the California Property Tax Administration. There are 2 items that will be discussed today. Item number 1 is post-Prop 19 issues and challenges, and the second one is emerging issues. The speakers today are Leslie Morgan, President, CAA Shasta County Assessor; Christine Lee, incoming President, CAA and Kings County Assessor; Fong La, Alameda County Assessor; John Tuterer, Napa County Assessor; Robert Menville, Imperial County Assessor; and David Young, Chief Deputy Director, Property Tax, Board of Equalization.
Yes.
I mentioned earlier that Fong La was running a little bit late. I've asked Kristen DePaul to sit at the table for the conversation, although he'll have his introductory remarks. He may be here with us by the time we go through the other chairs.
Okay. We have some flexibility, not a problem at all. Mr. Kitty, did you complete your announcement? I think so.
I did complete my
All right.
announcement.
All right, well, great, thank you. So before we begin, I just want to point out, for those of you that are wondering, whatever happened to possessory interest? Those of you who have come to talk about possessory interest, because I know I'm talking to my people here. We took it off the agenda for today, and that we will have it on the agenda for next month's board meeting discussion, and we will place this item and reach out to you so that we can have a full, robust discussion. With that said, we've got Leslie Morgan, we've got Christine Lee, we've got Fong Law, John Tudor, Robert Mainville, and also David Young. They're going to be joining us today for a panel discussion and a dialogue around lingering issues with the California Property Tax Administration, specific to Prop 19. And with that, I guess we'll hear from you, Ms. Morgan, first.
I didn't necessarily prepare additional remarks on this specific topic.
No problem. It's okay.
We have a great team here who
Okay.
have their remarks prepared.
All right. Well, Mr. John Tudor, how are you?
Chair Cole, I'm very well, thank you. I wanted to just say that it's a pleasure to be here. You mentioned, one of the members mentioned that it was so many years ago that this meeting started. I've been to 44 of them, and I want to continue doing that. It's my service with the County of Napa has been enhanced by my relationship with the Board of Equalization and with its staff. Just to give you one example, recently I get a lot of emails from free courses that are offered to the private sector. And with Patricia Lumsden, and my congratulations on her retirement, and her team, we've been able to set up those free courses for assessor staff throughout the state. Several hundred appraisers have taken those courses at no cost to the county and have gotten credit, which they require. So it's very important that that kind of cooperation between the assessors and the board staff pays benefits for everyone. I have some remarks that Steve Duckles, who's the education chair, asked me to give today, and I will do that. I figured out on my phone how to get it so I can read it, and since it's his remarks, I'm going to read them rather than try and ad-lib it. So Steve Duckles is the Yuba County Assessor and is our chair of our Education Committee, and he did want me to just say that 2022 has been a successful year for the Education Committee. We've had the BOE's efforts to convert traditional in-person courses into virtual courses. CASA, which is our administrative body among the people who serve as the support staff for assessors' offices, has been doing a great success in meeting the educational needs of assessment analysts and support staff. And LA County's efforts to develop training programs through community colleges. I've been indebted to Jeff Prang and his training team who've helped me with some of this coursework that they've been able now to roll out statewide with the cooperation of the CAA webmaster from Placer County. The real property chiefs and business property chiefs have had successful in-person conferences, creating valuable networking opportunities for appraisers, and currently in development is a leadership institute through UC Davis that will be not only the assessors, but also the recorders and the election officials. The assessors from the Bay Area put the first one of those on in Stanford back in the 80s or early 90s. We had a second one at the University of the Pacific in the early 2000s, and this will be our third one. It's a great opportunity to bring up the newer and younger members of the staff who will be our successors at someday, I hope not for many years in my case, and that they will be an important cog in keeping this relationship between the assessors and the BOE functioning. LA County's in the process of developing a special course on intangibles, and we're also learned from Patricia that the BOE is planning on providing both in-person and virtual courses in 2022-23. Steve, on his behalf, I'd like to thank the BOE staff and board for their commitment to providing educational resources to assessors. And Steve wants to pass his congratulations on to Patty for her retirement. Moving from there to the discussion of Prop 19, we have worked diligently in our individual offices. We have had a working group with statewide, with the Controller's Office, which we need to be in, and with the Department of Finance in terms of various reporting under Prop 19. There are 36 megabyte counties. We have a special task force among the megabyte counties working on Prop 19, and I can't speak for other vendors, but being a megabyte county, I know that they've rolled out some basic foundational applications that we need in order to make Prop 19 work and to pull together not only for our constituents and our property owners who are using Prop 19, but also for the reporting function. And again, with the cooperation of the BOE and the great job your staff has done on giving us guidance, it's been very helpful. I just, the other day, even after 36 years doing this, I learned something thanks to the work put together by your staff, and I was able to help a constituent who we thought was not going to qualify for a base year transfer to qualify because of an interpretation that your staff, including your legal team, built into Prop 19. So it's coming together. I can tell you from the perspective of one county assessor that as far as Prop 19 is concerned, we're feeling relatively comfortable with everything except the reporting requirement. That's still up in the air because CDTFA has not yet finalized the reporting requirement regulations, and that's an issue that doesn't concern you, but that we're working with them on. And if you, Madam Cohen, are successful, we'll be working with you on that issue in next January. Thank you.
Mr. Manville, how are you?
Yeah, good morning.
Good.
Fine, thank
Good to see you.
Nice to be here. Robert Menville, Imperial County Assessor, also CAA Standards Committee. Just like to mention to Member Schaefer that I think I do travel further than you do to attend these meetings. And Kristen DePaul and MODOC may travel further than both of us, I'm not sure. But it's a 2-hour drive to San Diego and then a flight here for me. Anyway, on standards, I'd like to briefly, Standards Committee covers quite a few areas. We have quite a few subcommittees and ad hoc committees. I'd like to mention those. We have business property, business valuations, forms, natural resources, real property. We have aircraft advisory, commercial industrial database, calamities, dark store, exemptions, LEOP, mapping GIS, possessory interests, which Chairman Cohen mentioned a minute ago, Proposition 19, and rescissions. During the year, we have dissolved a couple of those committees because either their work was completed or there was no more work to be done. That's rescissions and calamity ad hoc committees were dissolved so far this year. I'd like to thank all the members of the committee who have participated and assisted in the work that Standards Committee does for the California assessors. A couple of people I'd like to recognize that do a great deal of work. Forms Committee. I was told early on in my career as assessor 8 years ago that forms is a process. Form changes is a process, and I've discovered that it's a very involved process. It requires many members of county assessor staff and Board of Equalization staff. And Diane Brown has led that subcommittee for many years. She's retiring at the end of this term, so I'd like to thank her for her service. She's done a great deal of work on that. Mark Tonneson, I'd like to recognize him for helping me this year with the Proposition 19 Ad Hoc Committee for the emergency rules. Mark said he would take it over, and then I think Barbie Edgington in San Luis Obispo County on the county staff there did much of the work on that. So I'd like to recognize them for their help. And then Patty Lumsden, thank her for the report. She always prompt and thorough and informative reports from the Board of Equalization that she presents to the committee. So thank Patty for that, and we will miss her. I wish her well in her retirement, as I do Diane Brown and Mark Tonneson, who's also retiring. Our most challenging area continues to be Proposition 19. The forms, as I mentioned earlier, forms ties into that, and the emergency rules that you're working on and that the assessors worked on all ties into that. And over time, we will all become comfortable and knowledgeable on how Proposition 19 works. Because it is so multifaceted, intergenerational base year intergenerational transfers, base year transfers, calamities. It can be very challenging for property owners to understand how it works. It can be very challenging for county staff to understand how it works. In my county, which is a geographically large county in Southern California, but small tax roll, small population, we've had a great deal of retirements. In 2020, the county had a retirement incentive program we've lost. In 2020 and 2021, lost 3 of our supervisors and some of our staff. And replacing those with newer, younger members requires a great deal of training and education. And that's a huge challenge in my county, is training our staff so they can serve the taxpayers, the property owners. And so that will probably continue to be one of our biggest issues on standards for the rest of this year and then going into next year. Whoever the committee is, the chair is for that committee and the members, they will continue to probably have Prop 19 issues that they'll have to deal with. And but we will work through it, and as I said, and as Assessor John Tudor said, eventually we'll become comfortable with it. We still have the challenge of reporting and working with our auditor controllers in our county. That's we've just started to compare notes as at least in our county between myself and the auditor controller how we're going to report to the California Department of Fee and Tax Administration. We don't have as much reporting as some of the larger counties will have, such as our neighbor Los Angeles. I can't imagine the workload they have on Prop 19. But relatively speaking, we all will have this challenge, but we'll work through it. Thank you.
We always do. We work through it, don't we? Thank you. Mr. Fong-La, good morning.
Good morning, folks. I'm supposed to talk about legislation, right?
So we're talking about, leave it to Fong to show up late and then be wondering, like, what are we talking about?
You know, my mind is occupied by the fact that John Tudor has been coming to these meetings longer than I've been alive. So I'm just like that. Like,
Longer than most people have been alive.
if I'm still here 40 years from now, someone slap me. But, I love you, John. Okay, so a lot has happened this last year. We had the legislature likes to play with property taxes a lot. A lot of what they play with is exemptions. There have been several changes to some of the exemption rules, and I'm appreciative of the Board of Equalization and their staff for helping us work through a lot of these. A lot of times they mean well, meaning the legislature, but they don't always end up doing well. They write laws that don't always make sense and don't always make administrative sense to us as we administer it. So we've been working very well with the staff to try and come up with ways in which we can administer some of these laws that the legislature have passed, Prop 19 being the biggest one this last year, but there were a couple of others as well. But the biggest accomplishment we had this year, and I appreciate Chair Cohen for her support in this, was getting financing, getting money to improve the property tax system for all parties, not just the assessors, but it's going to help the auditors and the tax collectors, and throughout the whole state, we're able to secure $10 million a year for 3 years, a total of possibly $30 million if certain things are done. And we've been bending over backwards, many of us, for the last 2 months to meet the requirements of the Department of Finance. As of yesterday, we have a joint power agreement document draft that was finalized, and we are hoping that many of us assessors will be able to get it passed by our Board of Supervisors. The Department of Finance has given us till November 15th to get this done. It wasn't that much time, and I appreciate Josh Nelson as well, and I keep forgetting the name of his law firm, who the Assessors Association hired as our outside counsel to help us draft that document. And like I said, it was finalized yesterday. I don't know where everyone is at in terms of getting it through their Board of Supervisors. I have it on my Board of Supervisors agenda on November 1st. I'm hoping that there won't be any issues. If so, I will be at least one county involved. But we could not have done that without the support of the Board of Equalization, and I'm extremely grateful for that support. What else do I have in legislation?
Anything around?
Oh, Prop 19. Okay, so the money, how is the money going to be spent? We worked with the Department of Finance to come up with 2 funding areas for the first tranche of money. The first is a Prop 19 system for the entire state of California. Right now, we send Excel forms back and forth. John Tudor and I just did this last week, where our staff sent Excel forms back and forth from each other, trying to figure out what is being transferred and to whom and how much. I don't think that's a very good way of doing it, especially when we start getting thousands of these transfers as we move forward. So we're hoping to build a Prop 19 portal that will allow access for every assessor to be involved, and the services available to everyone. That was part of the deal. I honestly don't know what that's going to look like yet. I think our goal is just to get the funding for it and then try and figure it out as we go along. And then the other part of the funding is a system for exemptions. Currently, exemptions are, I think, at least for my office, I don't know about everyone else's, is filed to us via snail mail. People mail us their packets, and then we process the packets. I'm hoping that we can come up with an electronic way of doing this, not just for ease for the assessor, but ease for the taxpayer as well. In doing so, the taxpayer will have access immediately to their records, what they filed with us over the years. They don't have to call us and ask us to scan it in and email it to them, so they can see what they filed in years past. Prior to me becoming assessor, this association and the Board of Equalization came up with a great ESDR system that allows businesses to file electronically. And the vision that at least I see is that we would replicate that in some way for exemptions, since we have a system that works right now. So hopefully that will all work. It's not going to be done overnight. This is a multi-year project. I'm just grateful that the state of California recognized the importance of it, and I appreciate the collaboration that everyone has given. I didn't realize Patty Lemson is retiring. Is she here today?
She is.
Hey, Patty, thanks for all the help. It was Patty. I'll tell you this. It was when COVID first hit. I'll tell you why electronic filing is so near and dear to my heart. When COVID first hit, we didn't have a way of getting those who did not want to file electronically through the ESDR system wanted to be able to scan in their forms and email it to us. And because of the rules, they weren't allowed to do that. We worked with Patty to get authorization from the Board of Equalization to allow business owners to email us their forms and allow us to accept it in that manner. I mean, we wouldn't have been able to do it without her, So I'm so grateful to her as well. I owe you a drink, Patty. Anyone else retiring?
Lots of people. We've got several people retiring today.
Welcome to the team, Yvette. I just wanted to call out the fact that we have a new executive director who's been great to work with as well, and I appreciate working with her, and I miss her successor, but I'm sure we're going to have fun as well. Any other questions?
Let me see. Well, just a second. Mr. Tudor, you had something to say?
Just quickly, I just want to compliment Assessor Law on his leadership on this JPA program. He's been the spark plug. I'm going to our board on November 8th, so hopefully there'll be at least 2 counties, which is all DOF needs by the 15th. And I know other assessors in the room are on their board's agendas to adopt the JPA. But Fong has really been leading on this, and I just wanted to recognize that.
Let me actually recognize 2 people who aren't here, but there are staffers who helped us with legislation throughout the whole year and the whole JPA issue. Aaron Fanwick from Los Angeles and Mona Barr Gibson from my office in Alameda County. They have done, I mean, I'll tell you, last night, Mona was working late last night to get that JPA out to everyone, to make sure everyone had it in time so they can put it on their board agendas. I mean, it is our, and I can't give enough credit to our staff who make us all look good. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here, appreciating all the support.
Absolutely. Staff is critical. With that, I'll pivot to Mr. Dave Young, see if he has any remarks or comments for our panel discussion.
Sure.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
We can share this.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to participate. I just wanted to reiterate some of the comments made earlier today that we are so far into Prop 13 and we're still working out some of the administration of it. I just wanted...
13 or 19?
No, 13.
Oh, okay.
So 19 is nothing but a modification of 13. 13 sets up the base year value, and without the base year value, 19 is basically moot. There would be nothing to transfer. So I understand the implications of 19. It's going to take us a while to fully get everything straightened out and working perfectly. We're still working on 13, 40 years down the road. But I wanted just to give a really brief update as to what we've accomplished in the aspect of 19 so far. So far, when 19 first passed, the board, with the cooperation and the collaboration of the CAA, we put up a comparison chart just to give a brief overview of what was pre-existing and what's changed under 19. We've issued 23 letters to assessors on the issue. We've promulgated 2 property tax rules, 462.520 and .40. First, we did the permanent rules, then we did emergency rules, and now we're back to making those emergency rules permanent. So it's been a process. It's been a 1.5-year process. So hopefully, we're getting close to finalizing our permanent rules now. We've put up FAQs on our website as we tackled these problems and figured out answers. We've put them on our website just to make it a little easier, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've two pieces of legislation that has gone through. Senate Bill 539, that was a huge lift for both the board and CEAA in getting that done in order to actually have the statutes to implement Prop 19. So that was a tremendous workload. SB 989, the ability to defer some property tax payments while the base year transfer is being processed. That was just passed. And then I wanted to highlight 2 bills that did not pass, and that's Senate Bill 668 and an Assembly Constitutional Amendment number 9. Those would have basically would have in essence undone some of the intergenerational transfer and basically set it back almost to, but not quite how it was before. So we've accomplished a lot. There's still a lot to be done. I am personally very excited about the $30 million eventually in getting a system ready for the assessors in order to implement some of that. I think it's a great idea. I'm hoping that it bears fruit and very soon. So that's fantastic. That wraps up my comments in a nutshell. I'm here and available for any discussion that we may have after this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comment from the panelists up? Yes, Mr. Tudor.
So, Chair Cohen, I wanted to talk about an emerging issue that really starts back in 1955. I'm not sure many of the board members or any of the current staff are aware that the assessors hired the Board of Equalization to draw their assessor maps. We all had different mapping systems at the time, and the Board of Equalization, under contract, came up with what is now the AH 215 handbook and the map format that we all use throughout the state. And I think California, hopefully, is unusual in that we have a significantly comprehensive and consistent mapping system for the public and for our offices. So as you can tell, from 1955 until now is quite a period of time, and the whole world of mapping has changed with the new geographic information system environment. And so several counties, Yolo, Butte, now Napa, are working on converting their mapping systems to this new GIS environment. And still maintaining the integrity of the AH 215 handbook in those maps. Because our maps are static, they are not GIS maps, that we don't tie to it on our paper map, which the public needs and everyone needs for making transfers of property and the other reasons that they refer to assessor maps. So I just want to let you know that that is going to be an emerging issue, I believe, and hopefully I'll be approaching, and already have run the flag up the pole a little bit, the idea that one of the funding targets would be some form of integrated mapping system with a conversion to the most modern technology. So I think that's just something to keep on the radar. We, of course, would need the assistance of the BOE. There may be needs to update the handbook as well, which I don't think has been done, probably not for 60 years, but for many years. So I just wanted to raise that issue for the board's attention and that of your staff, and to let you know it may be 2 or 3 years down the line, but it's certainly something that is coming and will be vital to the keeping our property tax mapping system up to current and modern standards.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for flagging that for us. We're going to do a slight departure from our agenda. I'm going to call up Mr. Ernest Dronenberg, who is going to be retiring. And is he still here? Or did he leave? He's got a flight to catch.
He might be trying to change his plane.
Okay. I think what we're going to do is just very briefly present him with a resolution so that he will then be able to make his flight. Is he coming? He's coming. Take a message, Ernie.
Tell him there's a check and he'll come really quick.
Come on down, please come to the podium so that we could acknowledge you. Yeah, take a message, Ernie.
That podium. There you are.
So we understand that you need to catch your flight, but we
Yes.
wanted to make sure that we properly recognize you and thank you. And you have poured into me as a new member on this body.
Thank you.
Very early on in my career on the Board of Equalization. This is a man that has called in unexpectedly on our call-ins. He was at the Board of Equalization meeting yesterday. He's just had a hand. He's been a steady hand during some choppy waters for the last 3 years that I've been involved with the Board of Equalization. And just want to say thank you. You will be missed. You have had a fantastic career, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to say a few parting remarks.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure working with you, and we've accomplished a lot together, and you should all take pride in the last 4 years, what you've done, reestablishing and putting the meaning into the Board of Equalization, and I think you've done a great job. I know that I've enjoyed being part of that and helping in any way you can. But I know everyone in this office, audience has, and the people up here, maybe lesser these people, have been supportive of you and what you're doing. And so thank you and best wishes to your futures.
Thank you. Can I have the resolution? Thank you. I'm just going to read into the record the resolution that we have here for you, a man who has certainly earned it. Whereas, after 52 years of exemplary service in the private and public sector, Ernest J., also known as Ernie, Drunenberg, Jr., is retiring as Assessor Recorder County Clerk for the County of San Diego. And in this recognition thereof is deserving of the highest commendations from the people of the state of California. And whereas Assessor Drunenberg's stellar professional career and academic achievements include 32 years as a property appraiser, partner in the largest audit and tax consulting firm in the world, nationally recognized tax expert, member of the San Diego County Board of Education, and a degree in business administration and finance from San Diego State University. Whereas Assessor Drunenberg began his career at the California State Board of Equalization as a tax auditor in 1970. And 8 years later won his first of 5 consecutive terms as a member of the Board of Equalization, serving as chairman and member and chairman of the Franchise Tax Board on 5 different occasions. After he returned to public life in 1998, he joined Deloitte & Touche, LLP, as the national partner in charge of the state tax controversy and government relations. And whereas, as the State Board of Equalization member, Assessor Drunenberg personally wrote the initial Prop 13 property assessment rules, heard more than 20,000 tax appeals, and was the key sponsor and architect of the California Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And whereas Assessor Drunenberg was elected Assessor Recorder County Clerk in 2010 and is currently serving his 3rd term and has held the position of President and Board Member of every major state tax association in the United States, including Commissioner on the Internal Revenue Service Restructuring Commission, and served as President of the Federation of Tax Administration, Western States Association of Tax Administrators, and the California Assessors Association. And whereas over the years, Assessor Drunenberg has received countless awards and distinctions for his many contributions to tax administration, including the 1998 Distinguished Public Service Award by the National Tax Executive Institute, and the naming of the Board of Equalization's only major conference room as the Ernest Drunenberg Jr. Conference Room. And so be it there resolved that we, the members of the board, do hereby extend to Ernest J. Drunenberg Jr. our sincere and grateful appreciation for his dedicated service to the County of San Diego and to the state of California. Our congratulations on this very well-earned retirement, and our best wishes to his continued success, happiness, and good health in this year, in the years to come. Adopted in Sacramento, California, this 19th day of October 2022 by the California Board of Equalization.
Thank you very much, but thank you. That still won't get me on my plane. I must meet this guy sometime.
Is there a pilot in the room?
All right, there we are. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very
Job
much.
well done. Okay.
Does Ernie have time for a picture?
Just a minute. What we're going to do is, actually, we're going to take it back. Because the assessor, the controller The controller wants to sign it personally. So just because you have to rush to catch your plane, when we get the sign, would you mind coming back and then we can take a full board meeting, a full board picture, or shall we take a full board picture now?
Right now.
Now? Okay. Okay, come on, guys. Come down quick.
Come on down.
Come in the middle.
When's this flight leave?
Should we just say, we'll help you.
Right, let me take that water bottle you have in your pocket, so that's not the picture.
But Mr. Schaefer needs to be on this side. For balance. For balance. Come on this side, sir.
My staff has an ongoing, every time I speak in public.
Are we, wait, hold on, are we spacing correctly? Can I close the pad?
I'll come over good today since it's being televised. What would happen if I did? Would you
All right.
guys blur it out?
Thank you. Thank you. Safe trip to you. We will get this to you, okay? Thank you.
Somebody have a, there you got your driver for him. No matter what seat I sit
All right. I think you would agree that was worth the interruption. All right. So, Mr. Tudor, you were sharing with us about something that happened in 1955?
I was done.
An emerging issue that started in 1955 that you were flagging for us.
Right. I was in high school then. So.
Thank you very much for that presentation. In terms of other emerging issues, are there anything else that you want to bring to this body's attention?
I do have a public comment, someone who's in the audience who would like to come forward.
Oh, that's great. Let's do it.
Gina Rodriguez, Ryan LLC, Principal. Dave, can I ask you to scooch over? Yeah, and let her sit there and we could just kind of, oh, she gets into the podium. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Chair Cohen and members. Gina Rodriguez, I'm a principal right here across the street in Sacramento for Ryan LLC, and I was before you in August at the Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing to present a couple of issues to you. First, though, I want to say from the practitioner community, we want to acknowledge Rosemarie Kinney's passing. She was so dear to all of us.
Yes.
And I've been doing this 4 decades, and I think she was part of my family for 3 of those. So we do acknowledge that, and our thoughts and prayers are with her family. Also, thank you, Assessor Morgan, and welcome, Assessor Lee. We look forward to working with you, and thank you for all of your hard work. We very much appreciate it. I know it's a thankless job, but we do know you work very hard and appreciate it. I came up for the emerging issue topic because we did present in August the issue of digital signatures, and I know it's been on your agenda and you're working very hard on it. Here's the issue. Our clients are getting penalized because they're not following the digital signature rules, and they're not following them because we don't know what they are. The 571L, which is the personal property tax return that our clients file annually, says very clearly there will be penalties if you don't make the proper signature on that form, but there's no instructions on what that means. What is the proper signature? We also know there was an LTA that was released, I think partly due to COVID, that talked about the county assessors have the choice to accept digital signatures or require wet signatures. Again, we don't care. We just need to know. We will comply with whatever the assessors want, but we need to know. There's 58 assessors. We need to know what those rules are to be able to comply. So we're asking for some instructions on whether a county wants a wet signature or a digital signature, and we will absolutely comply. But the business of penalties needs to stop because there's, again, no instructions to help us. So happy to answer any questions, and appreciate your time.
Thank you. We're not able to answer questions or have a dialogue right now, but I appreciate you coming in and participating. And it's important so that the other assessors can actually hear the issues that you're raising.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keddy, are there any other members of the public?
I have no other members of the public. We could go to the AT&T moderator if you'd
Please.
like. AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this matter.
For public comment by telephone, please press 10 at this time. And we have no commenters in queue.
All right, thank you. So at this time, I'm going to open up to the mic and let my colleagues speak if they're interested in commenting or asking any questions of the panelists. Mr. Vasquez?
Thank you. And thank you to, once again, to all the members and those that I know just joined us just recently here. And for those that didn't make it, I know many of you have really tough and busy schedules. So those that are not here, I know you're probably here in spirit with us today. But it was good to hear the history from our assessor tutor. I didn't realize you were the Vince Scully of assessors here. But it was good to hear that perspective in terms of, one, the history. And I was one that mentioned that it's been 66 years, and you've been here almost 40-plus years of those. So welcome. But in your remarks, and I'm hearing, I guess there's two things that are kind of brewing. One, obviously, the Prop 19, this seems to be bringing up a lot of challenges as you're going forward with not only the implementation of it, but now the transfer of property from one county to the other. And I know in some of the larger ones, like I'm looking at my assessor here in LA County, I'm sure they're overwhelmed. And I wonder if there's been any discussion, at least among your group, your association, kind of like the firefighters, when there's a big fire, they jump over counties and start assisting others. If there's an appetite or even the possibility of assisting some of these larger, especially the smaller counties that maybe have caught up, to assist some of the larger counties on this to get through this, because obviously I could see the financial impact it's going to have on some of the counties with this deferment, because right now we're thinking it's only maybe a year, or it could be longer by the time you all catch up with the backlog. And I'm wondering if there's been any discussion or talk about that among yourselves or among the association. So I just put it out there to any one of the panelists, and it looks like Mr. Tudor wants to weigh in here.
Mr. Vasquez, Member Vasquez, we all are having those issues.
Oh, we are, okay.
One of the main triggers was when Prop 19 passed and changed the intergenerational transfer and really restricted what was called the parent-to-child transfer. Practitioners jumped on that. They had from the passage date in November 3rd of 2020 until February 16th to try and figure a loophole to get the old parent-to-child in place. So they weren't killing people, so they died and their kids inherited, but they went through what they called an irrevocable trust mechanism, which has been upheld. And we got like 80 or 90 irrevocable trusts that just put a big clog in our pipeline. We're still dealing with that. For my first time in the 36 years I've been assessor, we have a backlog of transfers, which were caused because our staff were busy working on these irrevocable trusts and getting them into the system. So all of us are having that. I wish that it usually is the other way, where the large counties reach out to us, the medium-sized and smaller counties, to give us assistance. And of course, Los Angeles, San Diego, Riverside, San Francisco, Fongs County, Alameda have been wonderful in leading the way with their larger staffs and working with this board and with the legislature and keeping us afloat. It's a great idea. Unfortunately, it's going to take us a while to get through that. I think the statewide portal will help, part of this funding mechanism. But it's going to take us another, at least in our county, at least another 6 months to get back to where we should be, which is 3 to 4 weeks for a transfer to be worked and put into the system, so we're current with changes of ownership. And we're providing the process for the revenue agents who need the values to be done. So I wish, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and I don't think it's an oncoming train, but it's still a ways out there.
All right, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add to that a little bit to say, essentially, we have so many pieces of workload that we're managing. Prop 19 is one of those, but as John was saying, we still have all the rest of our transfers we're doing, and then getting the Prop 19 workload added into that. And from the perspective of a smaller county, we are still experiencing a lot of ongoing issues to address with the Prop 19 because it may be done once that transfer is done and the larger counties or between larger counties. But with some of the smaller counties, it's not just that initial transfer. They sold a home, they bought a home, but then there could be other additional new construction issues along the way. So we may have done that first process, but we still have a 2-year window where people are still have a mechanism to add new construction. So it's really hard to balance. I mean, one, we're much smaller staffed. We always want to help our fellow assessors, but it's not just about the one piece of Prop 19. We have so many other elements of our workflow. And if you're already, it could be 4 weeks in Napa County, it could be 4 months, 12 months, 18 months in terms of the transfer workload. So offices are just trying to build in where Prop 19 fits into the workload of what transfers already has for them. And it becomes one more element. So I think we're always going to be open to how we help each other out, but I didn't want you to lose sight of it for our offices is still just one of the things we're doing annually, repetitively, ongoing with our citizens within our counties.
Well, no, it's good to hear, and I believe it was Mr. Wong on the other end was mentioning that legislators many times will pass these bills not knowing the implications and the fallout, really, that these things create. And I'm seeing it at least in my county and in talking to folks, some of the assessors up and down the state. And moving forward, listening, especially now listening to your workload, some of us were assuming that the smaller ones weren't having as much of an impact, but it sounds like all the counties are having this impact throughout the state. So I guess moving forward, one of the things we might want to look at, and I know we've talked about it up here, is there seems to be an appetite with some of the legislators, especially those that just recently got elected after this whole reorganization of BOE. And now I think they're understanding the importance of BOE, not only what we do, but what we could be doing to assisting and helping many of the counties after Prop 19, post 19. So we'll definitely tap back into your ideas and thoughts as we look at creating some legislation down the road to hopefully backfill that, if possible.
And as the reporting processes continue where we get to that first reporting to CDTFA, we're going to just start seeing the impact of each county's property tax rolls themselves as a result of Prop 19, because the smaller counties are going to have more likely the ability for it to have impacted their tax rolls negatively, where some of the other counties may have had that positive influence. And there's supposed to be a balancing of that in some way, but we don't know what that's going to look like yet. We don't know if there's going to be backfill. We don't know how much it might ultimately affect our budgets, so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Eppolite.
Question for Mr. Tudor. Could you further elaborate on the revocable trust issue, what you meant by that?
So
that impact?
So practitioners figured out, sir, that by creating under the old rules of the parent-to-child exclusion, an irrevocable trust is a change of ownership. And therefore, you can't apply an exclusion to a property unless there's a change of ownership. So they created these irrevocable trusts. This one attorney was charging $6,500 and did like 100 of them, so they may have retired by now. But in any case, they were creating these irrevocable trusts, which passed muster. They weren't a scam. They weren't a step transaction to get in under the February 16th deadline. And that is what caused it. So the irrevocable trust is a change of ownership. it had some unintended consequences. So people would still be in their home, even though they'd irrevocably granted it in a trust to their children. They can't have a homeowner's exemption anymore because they don't own the property. The children do in the irrevocable trust. So we had a lot of people lose their homeowner's exemption. Not that that's a big deal, but those are the things. Now, that's a one-time event. That's not going to happen again. But that was something that the practitioners foresaw it, and were in touch with me, our local practitioners, and we said, yeah, that's legitimate. And, as you know, our job is to be fair, not to raise money. And so if they found a fair and a legal technique to do it, we're there to provide the service once it's done. Did that help, member?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Gaines?
Yeah, if I
All
could,
right.
and again, Assessor Tudor, if I could, and
Oh, excuse me, real quick, we've got Assessor Mainville.
I just wanted to clarify that what John Tudor was saying is that rush between November 2020 and mid-February 2021 was to transfer property under the old rules of Prop 58. That's why we had that huge, and I think every county saw that. There was an attempt to make that parent to child or grandparent to grandchild transfer and be able to use that exclusion prior to February 15th. So you had, and they weren't scams, they were using legal vehicles in order to transfer that, but also retain, the parent or the grandparent retain some type of control until their death. That's kind of, but I mean, it was an attempt to get under the wire on the old proposition, Prop 58, and then now we have Prop 19, so we're not seeing that anymore. That was just a 6-month mad rush to the recorder's office to record documents.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Gaines?
yeah, thank you, Assessor Tudor, and anybody on the panel that wants to weigh in. I'm just concerned as a result of the tracking that county assessors are going to have to do for property that is transferring title. And number one, how are you going to do that from a technological standpoint? And what is the impact on staffing for county assessors, and where does the money come from?
So let me just respond for our county. We, as I mentioned earlier, we are a megabyte county, and we immediately, the 36 megabyte assessors, worked with our vendor, a private software company, to build the basis so that we now have a new field in our computer program to track those base year values under Prop 19. And that's important, and also under the intergenerational transfer, because and won't take too long of your time, but under the intergenerational transfer, a child has to move into the principal residence in order to keep the base year value of the parent whose principal residence it was. If they ever move out, we have to, even though there's no change of ownership, let's say they move to Texas, which is happening unfortunately a lot, we have to reimpose the base year value plus inflation that would have been imposed if they hadn't moved into the house. So we have to track that number, and Megabyte for us.
How do you do that?
Well, Megabyte built a program, so now when we have that transfer, even though we keep the base year value of the parent who lived in the house, we put in that factored, the new full market value, which will become the base year value if the child ever moves out. And so that's what did it for us. Now, in terms of staffing.
But practically, can I just interject? Because let's say you have someone that moves from California to Texas. How will you know that?
Well, that's a big question that came out of Prop 19. There was some talk about an annual affidavit that people would have to file with their assessor saying they still live in the house. We decided that wasn't workable for either the constituents or for us. It's just going to happen. We have the ability to do escape assessments. So if somebody who is living in the house files a change, because they're not selling the house, they're just moving to Texas and turning it into a rental. If they do a change of address, we're going to reimpose that base year value and take their homeowner's exemption away. That's how it would be normally
Could be a sibling
triggered.
moves in.
If a
another
sibling moves in,
and
if they were an heir, then that's fine. They'd have to tell us that.
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
So in terms of staffing, once we got that program in place for our counties, it hasn't, we're going to have that impact, but it's just like tracking everything else.
Okay,
That's-
thank you.
That
Yes.
megabyte program is you're beta testing that, right?
Right.
Yeah. He's the guinea pig for the 36 megabyte counties.
Well, there's several of us.
Yeah. So it's still in beta testing. It's not, I'm a megabyte county, Imperial County's megabyte. We don't have it yet. So we're depending on John to find all the problems and so they can be fixed before we have it and use it.
Okay. Great.
So I'm gonna go to your question about staffing, because I remember coming here 4 years ago, and the issue 4 years ago when I first got elected was, how do we hire enough staff? That issue has gotten worse since COVID. We are so short-staffed. We have, I'll give you an example. I have 6 auditor appraiser openings. This is just one position in my office, 6 openings for auditor appraisers. We had 10 applicants. 5 met MQs, because the Board of Equalization determines the MQs for a lot of them. Out of the 5 that met the MQs, 4 decided to interview with us. Out of the 4 that interviewed, we hired 2. Out of the 2 that we hired, 1 decided to accept and 1 declined. So I still have 5 open auditor appraiser positions. I have 32 auditor appraisers in my office. That's 5 out of them are gone. That's the workload problem we have.
Yeah.
Prop 19 was an unfunded mandate by the state of California. Similar to what John did with Megabyte, Alameda County has its own property tax system that we built ourselves 20 years ago. I have a programming team of 10 computer programmers. After Prop 19 was passed, all 10 of them worked day and night for an entire year to build a dual tracking system so we could track both the original base year value and what will be the new value if an heir does not accept that property. And that has to be continued for the life of that family owning that property, because the moment those children no longer live there, it reverts to the time in which there was a change in ownership, which could be a year before, it could be 10 years before. We have to track both. That's the liability that we incur as assessors to administer laws that are passed, especially laws that we were not consulted on when they were passed.
Right.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you. Anybody, please?
Another area of concern also is with the other base year tracking, 55 and older, disabled. That one, you also have 3 times to transfer the base year. So that's a big coordination throughout the state with all the assessors' offices to make sure that we are not going over that 3-year limit, making sure that where the base year is at, which county, where, how many times it's already transferred by the time it comes maybe to your county. So that's one, too, that we're hoping that this grant funding from the state might help us with the tracking of that as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Certainly we'll be working together as these issues arise and trying to figure out solutions, but it's a lot of challenges. If you just look at this issue of hiring, we've struggled too, and we've made great strides, and we're getting closer to where we should be, which is making us more effective as an agency and being able to help you. But Prop 19 just adds another layer really on you, not so much on the BOE. I think there's some impact, but it's not like we're not tracking property, right?
Right.
So.
Member Gaines, and then once you do hire, we have the training issue that we constantly battle in our offices. So not hiring somebody doesn't solve the problem, then they
Yes.
have to learn the system. And Prop 19 has been new for all of us, so it has been a challenge.
Yes, and Patty Lumpston, I just want to point out, increased our classes from,
Yes.
I think, 23 to 33 just this year, so we're going to have to stay on our game and continue to provide those services, so thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're almost out of time. Are there any other parting thoughts? Any other questions, colleagues? All right, seeing none. Mr. Ketty, I believe you already took public comment?
I did.
All right, thank you. All right, folks, thank you very much for your time and your wisdom. We appreciate your sharing them with us. Next item, Mr. Ketty.
Is item 5, acknowledgements and recognitions.
Yes. All right, you may take your seats back. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge several folks that are with us today for their contributions. We've got several people retiring. We have Butte County, Diane Brown. Are you here, Diane? Come on down. Why don't you just come and stand in the front? I know it's your moment to shine. Calaveras County, Leslie Davis, come on down. El Dorado, Carl Wayland, please come forward. Humboldt County, Mari Wilson. Kern County, John Lifquist. Madera County, Brian Glover. Monterey County, Steve Vagnini. Nevada County, Sue Horn. We heard from San Diego County already. Santa Cruz County, Sean Saldavia. Solano County, Mark Tonneson. And Ventura County, Dan Goodwin. Come on down, folks. We've got some special gifts that we'd like to bestow upon you.
I'm with you, Jeff.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to recognize the outstanding leadership that is standing before us today at the head of this at this meeting. These folks, maybe you guys could turn around and look at your peers. These folks right here are retiring. You have made an incredible life for yourselves and a great career. We have resolutions here for each and every one of you. Mr. Park, Mr. Kim, please.
And you're going to ask for this back,
You're going to get one too?
We are going to ask for them back because we do need the controller to sign them.
Yes, I want Betty Yee.
Yes, you do want Betty Yee's signature on there. Where's Tonneson's?
Oh, right over there.
Oh, there he is. Wait.
Carl Weiland.
Yeah, Carl Weiland. Where's Carl Weiland?
Still going to retire.
We're checking it back. I'm sure we have one for you. Okay, so colleagues, I think what we're going to do, we're going to come down, we're going to take another picture, we're going to meet, and after that, we're going to break for lunch. So we will take a quick recess to come on down to take a picture.
So we need a
Yes, come on, let's
carpenter to
go take a
take these
picture.
pictures apart to get Betty's signature in there?
Are you worried about his trip?
That seems like a lot of work.
Okay.
Would it be easier to just move the dark podium?
All right.
We'll see how that goes.
All right, you guys know the routine. You've seen it done before. No big deal, same angle. All right. Come on in, come on in, Leslie, yes. Okay.
Don't you want these all shown?
We do want
What's going on?
I think it would be great if it's assessor member, commissioner, in the middle.
All right, here I am. All right.
But then you choose to.
Hold on one second.
You're not, well, I'm blocking somebody.
We're going to do assessor member.
Okay, all right.
He's invited. Yes. Okay, here we are.
All right, look at us.
Hey, hold on.
Wait.
Oh, we got one more.
Hold on one second. 2 for 10.
I'm earning for a day.
So Ryan, yeah, no worries. That's all good. Let everybody take their photo and then we'll do ours because everyone's eyes are going to be everywhere.
No, he wins.
Okay, very good. All right, just fine now. And then everybody just look at the camera there. Only that one. Only that. All right. I've got a suggestion.
Can we have you come next to Ms. Cullen? And just switch out? Yeah.
I think it's a height thing. I think it's more of the height.
I'll be my brother Tony. Good blocking, good staging.
Do I get a blue one when it comes back to me?
Decide who gets blue and red.
Oh, I see alternate.
Don't read them.
Here we go, 3, 2, 1, and Nick up corner, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and 3, 2, 1. Cool.
Thank you.
Wait, just one question. Does it matter that there's people's names who don't align with?
No, it doesn't matter.
Not supposed to read
Thank
that.
you.
Are your eyes that good?
All right, all right, everyone, we have an opportunity to make some brief remarks.
I'm going to leave Ernie here.
Yes, please, thank you.
We're going to collect them all back, actually.
And have the assessors.
Okay, we're going to start with Butte County. Diane Brown. Don't go there you are.
Good morning, Chair Cohen, members of the board. Diane Brown, Butte County Assessor. I will be retiring at the end of December. Yay. At that time, I'll be 2 weeks short of 38 years, all of them within the assessor's office. I started there as a typist clerk 1 and worked my way up. So I'm really excited. It's been a great career. It's a great job for a girl being an appraiser because you get to make boy money and still have fun. So I really enjoyed that. But I'm leaving the office in really good hands. One of my supervising appraisers won her election, so she'll be taking my place. I have a fabulous staff. I will miss the people, but I will not miss the office. So thank you.
Thank you. Leslie Davis, Calaveras County. No stranger to that mic.
Well, I think it's those mics I'm no stranger to. Thank you, Madam Chair, honorable members of the board. This isn't the Academy Awards. If it were, we'd be here all day with all of the people that I would have to thank. Truly, I am appreciative for the opportunity to serve. And it has been a privilege to serve the people of Calaveras, the taxpayers of Calaveras, and my colleagues in the California Assessors Association. I leave office knowing that property tax administration in California is in very good hands. Thank you so much for acknowledging our efforts here today.
Absolutely, thank you. Carl Whalen from El Dorado County.
Thank you, Chair Cohen, members of the board. Earlier today, Leslie Morgan was making a comment, and she said, you don't need to know until you need to know. And I think that sums up property tax administration. I have always felt that property taxes weren't important until they become important in someone's life. One of the greatest rewards I've had from this job is having the answers to those questions for people. That has always been a source of satisfaction to me. The other satisfaction that I've had over the 32 years that I've worked in the assessor's office and the 12 years I've served as assessor is just the ability to participate in making local government work a little better, more efficiently, more effectively, and be more responsive. And that is a great satisfaction. This is a great group of people. Every one of them, I believe, holds those principles dear. I thank you for your recognition today, and I thank the people of El Dorado County and the state of California for letting me participate in this process. Thank you.
So thank you. I didn't see Mari Wilson, but I just want to call and acknowledge that she also is retiring from Humboldt County. We've got Kern County, John Lifquist. Good to see you.
Madam Chair, members of the board. So I've talked to everybody that will listen. I've already told this is my last week as assessor. Laura Avila, who will be following me, showed me her business card Monday. I told her it seemed a little unseemly to be jumping the gun like that, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to come and meet the board and thank your staff. It's been a great 8 years. I thank the other assessors. I'm glad I was able to hold on to your coattails and plagiarize your work. It's been an honor to represent the taxpayers of Kern, but more than anything, I'm honored to have been a part of this great group. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm just going down the list here. I just want to recognize Madera County, Brian Glover, retiring. Monterey County, Steve Vagnini, as I mentioned, is also retiring. Nevada County, Sue Horn is retiring. Santa Cruz County, Sean Saldavia is also retiring. And Ventura County, Dan Goodwin is retiring. And last but not least, where? Is he? Oh, yes. Gotcha. Okay, hold on. Also, want to recognize Solano County, Mark Tonneson, who's going to be sharing some remarks.
I almost bumped Dan. That was good.
Yeah, and then we'll go back to you, Dan.
Chair Cohen, board members, thank you for this. This is nice. My colleagues get to look at my bald spot. Something I never planned on having this job, kind of fell into it. Glad I did. If I'd have taken the time to make the decision to run, which was about 3 minutes worth of thought, if I'd have known what was involved in the election process, I probably would have passed, but I'm glad I did it. I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate the recognition. I appreciate my colleagues. Dave, they were crazy enough to make me president for 2015. Thank you very much for this. It's been probably one of the best rides of my life.
That's good to hear. Thank you. And last but not least, we have Dan Goodwin from Ventura County.
Thank you, Madam Chair, honorable members of the board. I did make a couple of notes because I wanted to tell you that I want to thank everyone for your professionalism and friendship. For some of you, it's been 24 years that I've appreciated you. I started with the assessor back in the 70s as an appraiser and then quit in just before Prop 13 was implemented. So I was one of the few people that did appraisals before Prop 13 and how that went. But I don't have time for that story. But in 1999, it was my honor to be introduced to the BOE leadership. And so I had gone from being an appraiser in an assessor's office, private practicing appraiser, well, then a bank appraiser, then private practicing appraiser for 16 years, and then was elected in 98. So in 99, I came to Sacramento, introduced to the dynamic leadership of people like Controller Kathleen Connell, who was quite assertive. And she had Marcy Jo Mandel as her sergeant-at-arms that worked with her closely. And board members like Dean Andel and Johan Clays, who were not exactly sidekicks, but they were certainly, co-workers on your board. And so it began an opportunity to grow. And as a fairly new person to government and kind of young in this position, but having a lot of thoughts about what to do, it was very important to have exposure to people that did have strong personalities and convictions about their beliefs that would lead them to down different pathways and be exposed to that. And I found the same thing among all the assessors as I began to interact with assessor people, that you had this kind of opportunity to grow. And it's a message that I have really for the assessors that are going to follow in 2023 and the years that follow. Many of the outstanding board members that, at least in my life, John Chung, Betty Yee, George Runner, Fiona Ma, Jerome Horton, Tony, and Melina, Chair, obviously your support's been so important. In the early BOE directors, Sorensen, Dick Johnson, and then to more recently David Gow, Dean Kinney, Brenda Fleming. And so I don't have a chance to go on to the next year, but everyone in the organization. And so the thing that I want to the message was working with all the BOE, their staff, their outstanding leadership. Most frequently for me, there was staff like, actually going back to Larry Augusta, Christine Kazad, Mr. Nahoyo, David Young, Jim McCarthy, Richard Moon, Lisa Thompson, Patty Lundstrom, Glenna Schultz, Terry Young, and Rosemary Kinney, God rest her soul. Mm-hmm. So many inputs. And so over these 24 years, there's many things that assessors needed the support of BOE staff, their legal team, of the board members that would set rules and policies, adopt programs. And it all was part of honorable public service that's wise and that fulfills a goal, right? It's part of this healthy partnership that the California assessors have had with the Board of Equalization members. And together, we've all kind of helped keep our eyes on the goal. I'll skip a couple things here. There is a couple things worth mentioning. In 1999, there were some major issues in the assessment area for biopharmaceutical industry. There was huge disagreements how to assess their properties. There were a number of biofarm companies that had 4 years of appeals pending in different counties, in which tens of millions of dollars was probable for refunds. I know in my county, we were the refund check, once everything was settled, was in the multi-millions. Okay, so these were serious decisions, and it was something that required the BOE staff, counties, and industry to get together and provide factors and data to analyze and come up with the right ways to classify equipment, as well as set up standards for lifing studies. There were discounted cash flow debates over in the mineral area. WISPA, the Western States Petroleum Association, in discussions with Petroleum Standards Advisory Committee of Assessors, having our annual meetings every February, typically in Ventura for a long time, about 10 years of this. And it was finally resolved. We worked through it. We finally resolved it with, of all things, the dominance of the Treasury bill, the most consistent market indicator of the safe rate portion of a discount rate, which eliminated a lot of the argument, a lot of the different studies that were being paid for by industry, was this reality that the biggest market for 10-year bonds showed really what was considered the safe rate, which kind of is going on today too, right, seeing as that's changing. Of course, Prop 19's brought in some things. There was some tension, some little bit of panic at first about how to handle it, when to handle it, some concerns about how that all went, but eventually, we figured out panic's not a policy, so we addressed things. We made corrections where it needed to for some role corrections and righted the ship. There also were some important exemption issues. There was exemption issues like the low-income housing issue that developed quite a few years ago, and that was finally resolved with some new legislation. But again, legal opinions from your legal department, working with industry, working with the realities of a problem that had become exposed, which actually was first generated by a private attorney who worked for low-income housing, sending your legal department a letter asking for an opinion, and then that created the revelations that followed. Maybe one more on the exemption. Oh, also, I had a presidential library museum that ran into a problem. You're not allowed to have weddings at museums and get an exemption. Well, one assessor had to tell the administrators of this presidential library that they were going to lose their exemption if things didn't change. And so that got help from your legal department. And not to go through the whole story, your board certainly was concerned. Even U.S. senators wrote some letters with a point of view about that. It eventually was solved with the standing in the shoes of the federal government doctrine. That was what was accepted. That was written by some attorneys in Washington, D.C., and it was concluded that the library's administrations stood in the shoes of the federal government as they administered the museum. So all of that is to say, BOE staff, under your leadership, you've got a fantastic team. Just encourage you to continue to work on keeping your eye on the goal for this common success of all of us as participants in property tax administration. It's really what brings a component of honorability for the taxpayers, because we are the ones who decide how much money they're going to have to pay in taxes, and whether they're going to qualify for a deferred reappraisal, or if they're going to have an exemption. All these kinds of things are extremely important to the taxpayers. And so it's so important that we make good decisions, and I'm convinced that better decisions are made by assessors because they have your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Colleagues, do you have any parting words or anything? Yes, of course, Tony Vasquez.
I just want to wish you all the best, and many of you, and I've already spoken to some of the retirees, that we're definitely, or I'm looking forward to tapping into some of your resources and your time now that you're going to be retired. So thank you for your service, and wish you nothing but the best.
Okay. Marks?
Yeah, thank you so much. And for those of you that are joining us for lunch, we're looking forward to that. And then we'll have a breakout session. So thank you.
That's right. Mr. Schaefer?
That's very significant, and it's sad that most of these people are most talented people we have with 100 years of experience, and we are losing a lot of that. I just hope that the retirement season that the assessors are seeing, that has no reflection on the board of directors. We're up here, we're not doing any retiring other than Ms. Cohen. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Eppolite?
I just want to thank Mr. Goodwin for his words and just the reminder of how much this really is the Board of Equalization building. So thank you.
All right, folks, so this is where we are. It is 12:26. We are going to break for lunch. Lunch is going to be from 1 to 2:30 p.m., and then you have a breakout session scheduled from 2:45 to 3:45, and then we will reconvene at 3:45. And then we will close out and send you on your way. Thank you very much. We are in recess until lunch, to the end of lunch, excuse me.
I suppose if it was a Kennedy Museum, they would have identified the president.
Aye.